Good morning, everyone. Sorry, online people, sorry for tuning in a little bit late here. I was just a couple minutes late getting in the room, and we were just talking about jobs and who has them and who wants them, and yeah, the, yeah, you need a little spending cash, right? Yeah. Let's see here. So Adon is here, so I'll say good morning to you, sir. Good morning. Jesse's here. Good morning, Jesse. And Alicia is here. Good morning to you. And hopefully a few more people will trickle in shortly, although it is Friday, and although it's a short week. But did it feel like a long week?
It felt like it went by very fast. Yeah.
Fast week?
Yeah.
So, Dunya, so? Yeah.
Pretty fast.
It's been, yeah, I think this week went quickly, but I find like short weeks that come later in the term feel like they feel like they're longer somehow. Like I think you expect them to be short, but they feel like the same length. I don't know, maybe it's just me. We'll see. We'll see when we get to it if it feels long or short for you. That's okay there, Kayla. I see you. Good morning. We were a little bit late too, so you didn't really miss anything.
Do you have any plans for this weekend?
Do I have any plans for this weekend? I have a birthday party to go to, although the person whose birthday it is turning 1, so I don't think they'll. Yeah, I don't think they're not too concerned, about me showing up or not. But anyway, I'm going to go to that, and I think that might be it. I think I have some, there's stuff to do. Hello, it's okay. There's stuff to do around the house this weekend, so I think it's the weather's not going to be great, right?
It's been a bit hot.
Been a bit hot?
Yeah.
It was hot last night, I found, trying to sleep. I don't know. But, yeah. What about you guys? Big plans for the weekend?
Laundry.
Oh.
2 loads.
You're wild and crazy, Eunice.
Then probably go to Central Park. It's really nice at night. I like the weather there.
Yeah. Where's Central Park?
In Burnaby.
Oh, in Burnaby, right.
I forgot exactly where, but
right.
it's nice.
That'll be nice, yeah. Yeah. Anything else? Big plans?
I work in the weekend.
Oh, well, that's no fun. Where do you work?
Jack and John's.
Is that clothing?
Yeah, man's clothes.
Oh, okay. Okay. What's that like?
It's a man's clothes. All you have to do is just talk to customers and sell fittings.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty nice, but it's so boring.
Yeah.
Because it's so expensive, nobody comes.
Well, maybe you should have a sale.
It's like, oh my god, yeah. I'm trying to connect with people from that.
Yeah.
That's why I'm inviting everybody. I'm like, come to my store.
Oh. Even if they can't afford to shop there, come anyway. And
Yeah.
Just talk. They don't care.
So it's called Jack
And John's.
Jack and Jones.
Yeah, Jack and Jones.
Okay. I'm just trying to.
I might be able to stop by later.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you can come anytime.
It looks it reminds me of kind of like an Old Navy sort of thing.
No, it's not like that.
It's not like that?
It's in Metrotown.
It's in Metrotown.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, that's pretty cool looking. All right, maybe I'll check that out. Only if you give me a discount, though. Okay, let's do some social justice stuff here. Let's do some social justice. Right. So here's what we'll do today. We'll finish up this theory thing that we were talking about for the last couple days, which you may be relieved about because again, it's not the best part of the course. There's better parts of the course, but it's important to go through. So we'll finish that, and then we'll talk a little bit about critical thinking. For those of you who've been in my class before, it might be a little bit of a repeat, but that's okay. It's good to do again anyway. So I apologize for you'll have a little sense of deja vu, but that's okay. So we were saying that one of the things we were saying is that when we think critically about knowledge, acquiring new knowledge may challenge our common sense. So again, it's that idea of knowledge sometimes being counterintuitive, right? Sometimes things are what you think they are, but sometimes they're not, right? Sometimes things are not what they appear to be, okay? And the second thing is that we wanted to understand the meaning that is given to information. And so the example I gave you yesterday was that of Christopher Columbus, right? And again, we kind of know who he is. We kind of have, you know, most of us know a few facts about him. Brave explorer, discovers the new world, sort of thing. But again, there's a lot of information about him that is left out, right? And so, again, the fact that we know about him and the things that we know are related to power structures in society, right? Who is in power determines how we look at this guy. And so we said yesterday that for kind of white Europeans here in Canada, for the most part, you know, they see him as kind of a founding father, right? As heroic explorer, discovers the new world, and, you know, the result of which we have countries like Canada and the US, right? But again, if you look at First Nations people, if you look at Indigenous people, you know, he is kind of the beginning of the end of their way of life, right? After he, you know, quote unquote, discovers the new world, more explorers come and colonists and armies, and soon Indigenous people in North and South America are pushed aside to make room for colonial nations, right? And so, and he kind of starts all this off. And so for Indigenous people, he's no hero, right? He's, you know, the bringer of death, if you will. I don't, maybe that's a little bit too dramatic, but you know, they don't look upon him fondly, right? So again, these facts are commonly known about Christopher Columbus, but again, we have kind of socially constructed a picture of him, right? We've socially constructed his story to fit what we would like to hear, right? Things that we, white European, Canadians, and Americans, what we would like to hear. But again, we've left out pieces of the story where, again, he sets in motion the transatlantic slave trade, he sets in motion the destruction of indigenous cultures. And again, if you do a little bit of reading about him personally, he's a pretty horrible guy, right? And so he's probably not someone that we should look up to, but we just kind of forget about those details of his character and focus on the things that we want to hear, right? The things that we want to use to support our own position, right? So, yeah, so I said that. We said the other part of this Columbus story sometimes is that he proved the world was round. And again, we said that that's not really true either, right? People knew the world was round before. But even so, adding that detail to the Columbus story allows Western people to sort of continue to believe that, you know, real knowledge and science and progress, that all comes from the West, right? That's a Western thing. But again, I'll point out to you that lots of Indigenous people and other cultures around the world had already kind of thought of the world as round before the Europeans, right? The Europeans figured it out kind of late, actually. But we like to pretend that we figured it out, right? We were the ones who were the smart ones, but actually, again, we were not the first ones to figure out that idea. So yeah, when we look at knowledge, you know, again, some things there's lots of factual knowledge, right? There's lots of things that are indisputable. You know, Christopher Columbus did find the New World for Europe, right, in 1492. That's a fact, right? And all the pieces of his story are facts. But again, the way that those facts are put together and the ones that are left out tells you a lot about who is in power. And so who benefits from the story of Christopher Columbus as brave explorer, and whose perspective is kind of pushed aside. Right? That's important to pay attention to as well, right? And here, of course, it's kind of the white European perspective is the well-known version, and then the indigenous perspective on him is kind of pushed aside, although that's changing, right? And so many more people know more about Christopher Columbus. They are starting to see him in a different light. In some places in the United States, they've actually changed Columbus Day and they call it Indigenous Peoples Day. And so they're kind of acknowledging that, you know, yes, we're going to keep this holiday, but we're going to have it for a different reason, right? And so the picture we have of this guy is changing, but traditionally we would have seen one version based on what we want to see, right? What white Europeans want to see. Yeah. Okay. Yesterday I quickly introduced this to you, and I'll go through it fairly quickly just because I don't want to spend too much time on it. Guidelines for engaging constructively. I'll jump in at number 1 here. Strive for intellectual humility. And so one of the things that people sometimes think about social justice is that it's not real science, right? Physics and chemistry and stuff, that's real science. But this stuff is kind of soft somehow, right? It's kind of, you know, it's just what people think. But again, it's important to point out that social sciences, sociology, anthropology, things like that, they operate the same as other sciences do, right? They have hypotheses, they test them, they collect data, they analyze that data, they publish their results. And so social scientists go about their science just the same as physicists and chemists do, right? It's really no different. The process is just as rigorous, it's just a different discipline, right? The other thing, of course, is that we have to be prepared to engage with new understandings, right, or different perspectives. We have to kind of understand that, you know, we don't really know everything. And I don't know what your guys' thoughts are, but I kind of find that, you know, the older I get, the more I realize I don't know. And so, you know, when I was 17 or 18, I thought I knew a lot of things. And now, at the age I'm at, I feel like I know nothing at all about anything. But, you know, there's a lot of things that we don't know, right? And a lot of the things that we do know are not entirely correct, right? So we have to be ready to, you know, accept new information, or have the things that we already know, to have those things challenged, right? We have to have an open mind, I guess, if that makes sense. The second one, and we'll talk about this very shortly, just a little bit later today, we have to know the difference between opinion and informed knowledge, right? And so a perfect example of this, and I don't know how closely you've been following it because it's kind of it's an American thing, but, you know, there's lots of people talking about coronavirus and vaccinations, and there's lots of people out there who have informed knowledge, right? And so one of the guys who's become very popular is Dr. Anthony Fauci, right? So if you've been paying attention to US news at all, he's kind of the most important sort of authority on disease that the media and the government are talking to in the United States. He is, hang on a second. I need to find out, here he is. I'm going to put him up on the screen just to illustrate. So, there we go. Yeah, so here he is, although he looks a little older than his photograph there. But this is Anthony Fauci, right? And as you can see, he's the director of this institute, which is the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease, right? So he's in charge of that entire thing, right? And he was appointed director of it in 1984, right? So for almost 40 years, this guy has been head of an association that is focused on studying and understanding infectious diseases, right? This guy is informed knowledge, right? This guy knows about viruses, he knows about vaccines. He spent basically his entire life studying them, right? this guy knows what he's talking about. But at the same time, there's lots of people in the media and on social media who have opinions about the virus, right? Here's what I think about it, right? Or here's what I think about vaccines. But their opinions are just opinions. They're not really backed up by any kind of understanding or knowledge, right? And unfortunately, it's very easy for people and even for the media to take these as the same thing, right? Opinion and knowledge. But they're not, right? Dr. Fauci knows what he's talking about, right? He's been studying this since before I was born and before all of you were born, right? And so, you know, when Donald Trump gets up and says something about, oh yeah, coronavirus will just go away, he doesn't know what he's talking about, right? He doesn't know anything about viruses. That's just his opinion, right? But again, people unfortunately give a lot of weight to opinions. And again, it depends where that opinion comes from. Is this someone who knows what they're talking about? Or is this someone who doesn't and just thinks something, right? And again, we all have opinions about all kinds of things, and that's fine, but opinions are just that, right? They're just things that you think, things that I think, and there's no reason that we should go along with them, right? Unless somebody can give us evidence, but we'll get to that a little bit later, okay? But again, there's a big difference, right? Big difference between informed knowledge and simply someone's opinion of something, okay? Yeah, so again, we all have a right to our opinion, but often our opinion is just us kind of rehearsing or saying what we already think we know, right? And sometimes we're correct, sometimes not. 3, we have to let go of personal anecdotal evidence and look at broader social patterns. What's an anecdote? What's an anecdote? It's kind of a fancy word. It's a what? When you dabble with something? Oh, when you doubt something.
Suspicious.
Oh, when something is suspicious. No. I'm just trying to think of what word you might be thinking of. Antecedent? I'm not sure. I'm not sure what word you're thinking of, but that's not what it means. An anecdote is just a little story, right? It's just a little story. So, hey guys, you'll never guess what happened to me on the SkyTrain this morning. I got on the train and blah, 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 and anyway, that's what happened, right? So it's an anecdote, right? It's a little story, something that happened to me or to someone else, right? So we've all got these little stories, right, that we tell our friends, right? You know, hey, I was at school on Thursday and this happened, right? It's a little story. So these are kind of important for us, right? These are parts of our experience. They're ways in which we understand the world, but they don't really tell us a lot about what's going on in society in terms of broad patterns, right? So just because something happened to you, or just because you met someone and had a certain experience with them, doesn't mean that that holds true for the broader pattern, right? And so, you know, and it's difficult. It's easy for us to take these little experiences that we have and kind of extend them to society, right? We can extend them and say, okay, well, this has happened to me a few times, and so I think this is the way it is. And it might be, but it also might not be, right? So even though we've had experiences and we might have understandings about things, we have to be ready for the fact that our experiences might not reflect how things really are, right? And so, you know, again, in my personal experience, I haven't seen a lot of racism in Canada directly. Like, I haven't witnessed a lot of it. Does that mean it's not there? No, it's definitely there. I know it's there. But again, being who I am, right, being a white person, I'm not going to see a lot of it firsthand, right? I'm not going to see a lot of racism happening in front of me. And I'm certainly not going to see a lot of racism directed at me, right? So again, I'm not really in the position to clearly see it all the time. And so it would be very tempting for me to look at my personal anecdotal evidence and just assume that, oh, racism isn't a big problem in Canada. And in fact, that's exactly what I used to do when I was younger. I used to think, oh yeah, it's not a big deal here in Canada. We don't really, because I don't see it, right? But again, of course I don't see it, right? I'm not the person it's directed at, right? So just because I don't see something doesn't mean it's not there, okay? And similarly, just because you have certain experiences, those experiences may be very valid, right? They may be very representative of what's going on, or they might not be, right? We have to be ready for both. Does that make sense so far? Okay. Third one. This doesn't usually happen in a class like, here at Columbia College, but it can happen. Sometimes we can be defensive about new ideas and things that we're taught, right? Particularly when those things have to do with ideas that we kind of hold very deeply, right? Ideas about gender or sexuality or religion or race or things like that. And people can get upset about it. And again, it doesn't really happen very much in a class like this, but I did take a class at when I was doing my teaching degree at University of Alberta, and we had to do an Indigenous education class. It was mandatory; everyone had to take it, and we took it. And in the process, the class was taught by Indigenous professors, by First Nations professors, and a good chunk of the course was talking about the Indigenous experience in Canada, how Indigenous people are subject to racism, and how white people benefit from that racism. And for a lot of us kind of white students in the class, that was really hard to hear, especially because I think a lot of students hadn't really considered the idea in that way. And so, pardon me, and so, I kind of watched and felt myself, but I saw all people going through all sorts of different emotions, right? Some people were angry, some people were annoyed, some people shut down, some people were kind of sad, some people thought the class was bull, what, and there was all kinds of different emotions, right? And because people had to kind of work through this knowledge and work through the idea that, in the story of Canada, white Europeans are not really the good guys, right? We came to this place, we took over, and we didn't leave, right? And we'll get into the sort of complexity of that later, and how to kind of think about that, or how I might think about that. But that was difficult knowledge for us to deal with. And again, it took me a long time to kind of figure it out. So even after the class was done, I was still thinking about it, and I think I still am, right? So some of the issues that were raised in that class and the ideas that came up, it took me kind of years to sort out and put into order. And so, again, there was a lot of defensive reactions. It doesn't usually happen in here, but I thought I would mention it here, and I thought I would say that, sometimes when you feel those strong emotions, it's because one of your beliefs is being challenged, right? There's something that you believe to be true, and this idea that's upsetting you is contrary to that, right? So it's a good opportunity for you to sort of stop, well, and me too, to stop and say, okay, well, what's really going on here, right? What is it that I believe? How is this idea challenging that belief? And as we'll get to a little bit later, should I reevaluate that belief, right? Should I continue to believe what I believe? And the answer might be yes, right? Some things upset us, rightly so, right? So, for instance, the US and Canada just left Afghanistan last week. Not last week, I guess last week. Just left the Afghans to the Taliban, left some of our citizens there, left some of the Afghan people who helped us in the process, and that upsets me, right? I don't think we should have left them there, after all of that, just, okay, good luck, that upsets me. And it upsets me because I believe that, you have to take care of your people, you have to take care of your friends, and, after 20 years in that country, we had a responsibility to those people, and we abandoned it, right? We just decided that, good morning, we just decided that that was enough, right? And so, yeah, that upset me a little bit. It challenges my belief, but I'm not changing my belief, right? My belief is that we should take care of the people who help us, and we had a responsibility there, and we just walked out, right? Again, it's not a perfect example, but you know what I mean. Okay, and the fifth one. Oh yeah, okay. That's basically what I said. No, you know what? I'm gonna talk about that. Sorry. Let me just see. Yeah. What I'm kind of talking about here is that some of the things we talk about are things that people have emotional reactions to, right? Things like race, sexuality, gender, all of these kind of things. And we have an emotional reaction because of this. And so, have I shown you this yet? I haven't. Okay. So this is just a little graphic that I like to show, and it talks about, it kind of shows some of the things that culture is made of, right? So on the surface there are some of the things that we think about when we think about another culture, right? We think about people's language, the way they dress, their celebrations or their rituals, their food, things like that are what we think about when we think about other culture. But really, most of culture is kind of below the surface. It's things that people believe and value, and the way that people think about the world and themselves, and how things are supposed to work, right? And as you go deeper into culture, those ideas are kind of more strongly believed, they're more strongly held, and as a result, when you challenge them, people have a stronger reaction to them, okay? And again, it doesn't really matter what culture you're talking about, they all kind of work this way. As you go deeper, you find beliefs that are kind of more central to people's existence, and when you challenge them, sometimes you get a stronger reaction from people, okay? So, again, some of the things we talk about here, can have to do with some of those deeper parts of culture. So, again, some of the things we talk about might challenge our beliefs or values. They might challenge our identity, right? Again, before I went into that Indigenous education class, I thought I was the good guy, right? Or I thought at the very least, I wasn't doing anything racist, and therefore I'm innocent, right? I'm innocent of any wrongdoing. And to some degree that's true, right? But to another degree, I have also benefited from the fact that Indigenous people have suffered, right? My life is better because their life is worse, right? And I didn't do anything to make that happen, right? I didn't do anything to make it happen, and I don't agree with it, but it doesn't matter, right? Because I've still benefited anyway. And so, yeah, that my identity was challenged, as was all of the students in that class, right? And so that was difficult to deal with. Does that make sense, Dunya?
It has nothing to do with you and the Indian generation. It just has something to do with history. Like, we should know.
Well, that's
Maybe you can think of it, but it's not it's not your fault.
no, it's not my fault.
Yeah.
But it's something we'll talk about later for sure. But you're right. It's not my fault, right? But I do have a responsibility now, right? Because again, I have benefited from their suffering, and I have to decide if I'm okay with that, right? Am I okay with Indigenous people still suffering racism and discrimination and, having less resources and opportunity than I do? If I'm okay with that, then my job is done, right? I can relax, right? But if I'm not okay with it, then I have a responsibility to speak out about it. I have a responsibility to elect people who will do something about it, right? I have a responsibility to do something. So you're right, it's historical. I didn't do anything wrong necessarily. Probably even my ancestors didn't do anything wrong because they came to Canada really only 100 years ago. So we haven't really had enough time to do anything wrong. We've never worked for the government or the church or anything like that. None of my family did anything wrong, but we benefited anyway, right? And so, again, but that's a perceptive point that you made, because that took a while to get to as well. Like for me and for other students in that class, it took us a while to figure out, you can feel guilty if you want, but the guilt doesn't really do anything, right? You have to move forward, right? You have to see if you are, if you're okay with the way things are, and if you're not, then you have a responsibility to do something to fix it, right? But yeah, that's a good point that you've made, but it took us a while to get to it, to figure it out. Yeah, and so I'll go to the last one here. This is a kind of an important one too. Just recognize that, again, we're all looking at things from a different perspective, right? And we're all going to see things based on our individual character, right? Who we are, but we're also going to look at things based on the social groups we belong to, the culture we've been raised in, the experiences we have had, right? So, if Eunice and I are looking at a situation, or if we're looking at something, we're not going to see it in exactly the same way, right? Eunice is a different person than me, and she comes from a different culture, right? She's had different experiences. And so we're both going to see things differently. Her way of seeing things is not necessarily more correct than mine, and the same thing vice versa. Mine is not more correct than hers. But, the thing is, I'm going to borrow this Kleenex box. So this is a box, online people, a Kleenex box. And one of my professors, actually in the Indigenous education class, did this. And so, Unadi, how many sides of the box do you see? One side? You see the front side? Okay, Zartaj, how many sides of the box do you see?
Two.
You see two.
Side.
Side in the front? Arad, how many? You see two? You see the front and that side, right? I'm sitting here, so I can see the back side, which none of you can see, and I can see the top a little bit too, right? So that's the whole thing, is that we're all looking at the box, we're all looking at the same thing, but we all see kind of different parts of it, right? But if we talk to each other and we tell each other what we see, then we have a chance to see more, or maybe even the entire thing, right? But no one of us can really see the entire issue, right? And so that's why, again, we have to recognize that we can see different things and we understand things differently. And if we combine our viewpoints, we have a better chance of actually understanding the whole thing, right? Of seeing the whole issue. Okay? Does that make sense? Okay. Let's see. Right. So those are the 5 things. Oh yeah. And the only other thing I'll say here, and again, this doesn't really come up in class because you guys are all polite and you don't yell or argue with each other, which is, I wouldn't mind if you argued with each other a little bit, but that's okay. Remember that when we're talking about an issue, or when we're talking about different viewpoints, we want to debate the idea, or we want to debate the issue, but we don't want to debate the person, right? We don't want to attack the person. So, for instance, yeah, I should probably change this because we've Trump has been voted out of office, and hopefully we'll never hear from him again. But
Hopefully.
I have to say, and I'm sorry if there are Trump fans in the audience, but I have to say, like, after he was banned from Twitter and after he lost the election, it was such a relief because it seemed like before it was like every day it was like, you know,
Ranting.
oh, it's like, what did he do now, right? Or what did he say now? And today he said this awful thing, and tomorrow he did something else that was awful, and then like every day there was something new, right? And then after he was voted out and banned from Twitter, it's like, oh,
Have you seen The Great Hack?
the what?
It's a movie.
What's
The
it called?
Great Hack.
The Great Hack?
Yeah, it's about some selection of how to own and do food.
Oh, no, I have not seen that, but I'm gonna Google it on the break.
That's the movie.
Okay, I'm gonna look at it on the break.
The emoji.
Yeah.
Smiley.
Yeah, how do you guys interpret that emoji? What do you think it means?
Fake smile.
Fake smile?
Kind of. Or like sarcastic.
Yeah, okay, good. That's kind of how I think of it too. It's kind of a sarcastic thing, like
Yeah.
hee hee.
Yeah.
I mean it, but I don't, but maybe I do.
It's
Sort of
like
thing.
a smile without any eye expression.
Oh, okay. Oh, interesting.
It's a sarcastic one.
Interesting. Yeah, because I like using that one, but I don't know what its kind of accepted meaning is. But yeah, so what I'm trying to say here is, again, we don't attack the person, we attack the idea, right? So I might disagree with, well, actually I could change this. I might disagree with Joe Biden's foreign policy, right? I might disagree with him on Afghanistan. I think leaving Afghanistan and leaving in the way he did was a catastrophic mistake, and he could not have made a bigger mess of it if he tried, right? Disastrous, disastrous decision, right? But I'm not going to attack Joe Biden himself. I'm not going to say that, you know, he's a old fogey who's senile and doesn't know what he's talking about. Like, I'm not going to do that, right? And that's not kind of proper argumentative technique. You don't attack the person, you attack the idea.
In a lot of talk shows, you attack the
Sure.
person.
Sure. Well, because people are very good at attacking people personally, right? They're very used to it, and
Yeah.
that's how, you know, that's how a lot of these things are done. You attack the person, but if you want to be,
He deserves attack.
yeah, well, politicians do it all the time. But if you want to do it correctly, you debate the idea, not the person, right? So I'm not going to attack Joe Biden as a person. I'm not going to say anything bad about him. But I am going to say his decision to leave Afghanistan was disastrous and poorly thought out, and I can't understand how he would have thought that anything else would happen than what did happen, right? But so I strongly disagree with what he did. I think it's a disaster, and I'm embarrassed to have been that my country was part of it, right? So I'm allowed to say that, but I'm not going to attack him. I'm going to attack the decision or the issue or the policy, right? Again, that's not, you know, you guys are all nice and polite, and I'm sure you wouldn't do that, but I thought I would point out that this is kind of the correct thing to do. Don't attack the person, attack the idea, the decision, the policy, whatever it is, right? Okay, good so far? Good? Okay, let's take a little break, because when we come back, we're going to talk about critical thinking, okay? So put your critical thinking caps on in 10 minutes, and then we'll...
Last time I heard that was in primary.
Really?
Yeah.
You were critically thinking in
On the
primary?
textbook in like math or like science or history, there
Oh.
would be like, put the thinking
Put
cap on and
the-
solve the problem.
Okay, well, dust the thinking cap off there, Eunice, and put it back on, and we'll do this, okay? All right. See you in 10 minutes there, people. Okay, and we're back. So, critical thinking. Again, apologies if you've seen this before, but I'm hoping, no, I'm not hoping you've forgotten it. I'm hoping you remember every little detail of it. But that's okay, we're gonna do it again. Now, when I say critical thinking, what do you think of? Like, how would you define critical thinking if somebody asked you what it is? How to think correctly. Okay. Okay. And what?
How to think with analyzing all the facts and making proper judgments.
How to think with?
Analyzing all the facts
Okay.
and making proper judgments.
Okay. Analyzing all the effects and sort of contributing factors. Okay. Arad, when you said correctly, like define correctly for me.
So correctly means like with concentration and like seeing actually consider all of the point of views and all of the size, all of the space, and just make your result, make an appropriate result for yourself.
Okay. So kind of exploring all the options, all the perspectives,
Yeah.
right? Thinking about all of this is a fancy word, all of the stakeholders, right? All of the people who, are affected by the decision, right? And trying to make the best one you can. What else would you say critical thinking is?
Controlling yourself.
Controlling yourself?
Controlling yourself.
Okay. Like keeping yourself from making like an impulse decision?
So for example, if you know that something is wrong,
Yeah.
like you don't just like judge and say, you just wait and like think and
Analyze all the
see
facts.
like on the side.
Okay. So having some kind of like self-control, don't just jump in or maybe jump to judgment on something, right? Okay. Yeah, that's all good. That's all good stuff. And you're correct, right? All of those are parts of critical thinking. But for today, we'll just kind of come in at the ground level. And again, the way I like to start this is usually by talking about beliefs, because critical thinking is a tool to figure out if our beliefs should be accepted, if we should believe the things that we believe, right? And so again, we're not really paying attention to what we believe necessarily, but should we believe those things, right? And I think beliefs are important, right? Because they do help guide us down the pathway of life, right? Who in this room or online, who's planning on going to either university or like a college or some sort of thing after high school? Who's going to get some more education of some type? Probably pretty much everyone, right? Why? Haven't you had enough school? You've been in school for 12 years. You probably can barely remember a time when you weren't in school. Haven't you had enough? Why do you want more school? Oh, okay. So some of you have later career goals, right? And you will need that education in order to accomplish those career goals, right? Okay. Why else? Why else would you want to do more school? There's a bit of an upside down smiley face on that one too.
Yeah.
No, well, I'm not suggesting that you shouldn't do more school, but what I am suggesting is that there is a belief that more school will help you, right? It'll help you gain the career you want, right? It'll improve your quality of life, right? You'll be doing something that you want to do or that you enjoy. You'll be doing something that, pays better than just...
And in our society, people would think that he's pretty much educated because of a lot of education.
Yeah. So, and education is valued in our society, right? So, When you have letters after your name, it's like, oh,
Yeah.
well, look at this person, right? Yeah, so those are all reasons why you might engage in more education, right? And probably most or all of you are. But of course, those are all beliefs, right? You have a belief that extra schooling after high school will improve your quality of life, right? You have a belief that, training for a particular career that you enjoy or that you want to pursue will be good for you, right? That you will actually enjoy that thing. And again, I'm not saying those beliefs are wrong. I think they're correct, right? I think that more education after high school will improve your quality of life. I think it will help you to move into a career that you want to be in, right? I think those beliefs are correct, right? But they are beliefs nonetheless, right? And so you can see that if those things weren't true and you believed them, well, you might be doing a bunch of education for no reason at all, right? You might be wasting a lot of time and money and effort doing something that makes no difference, right? But instead, you have the belief that doing all of that extra school will make a difference, right? That's your belief. And again, I think that belief is correct, right? You are correct to believe that, I think. But again, we want to make sure that we can evaluate our beliefs in order to make sure that they are worth believing, right? Because they have an effect on our lives, right? All of you are going to spend more time and more money and more effort getting more schooling, right? So hopefully you're doing it for a reason that is legitimate, right? And again, I think it is. I'm not arguing it isn't, but I'm just trying to point out that belief is motivating you to do something, right? So again, when we're thinking critically, we're trying to make sure that our belief is worth believing, and we want to make sure that that belief has good reasons for us to accept it, to believe that it's true. Okay? So, ground level. We can really only think critically about things that are made clear and that are claims, right? People making statements about things that are the case or are not the case, right? Going to school, going to university or college or getting some other training after high school will improve your quality of life in the future, right? That's a clear statement, right? You can critically think about that, right? If I say, is there a God? Well, you can't really think critically about that. That's just an open-ended question, right? You can answer it however you want, but you can't think critically about it, right? If I say, yes, there is a God, we can think critically about that. Or if I said, no, there is no God, we could think critically about that as well, right? But I have to make a clear statement about how things are or how things are not. I can't just ask random questions, right? So, yeah, I have to say that something is or isn't the case, right? The other thing I'll point out here is that what we're going to be doing is building and assessing arguments, okay? And so arguments are important, not only in education, but also in life, right? So if you eventually become an academic or a scientist of some sort, you'll build lots of arguments because every journal article, every paper that a scientist writes, all of those are arguments, right? I did this experiment, I collected this data, and this is what I think it means, right? This is what I think my experiment proves. And so they're arguing that they are correct, right? If you wind up being a politician, well, you're going to have to argue why people should elect you, right? And once you get elected, you have to argue why your party's programs are the best and why people should vote for them, right? If you wind up being a lawyer, lawyers make arguments all day, right? No, my client didn't kill this person, Your Honor, and here's why. And they make an argument, right? And if they're, the better they are at making arguments, the more successful they're going to be and the more cash they're going to make, hopefully, right? If you want a raise in the future, you can't just walk into your boss's office and say, hey, I want to make more money. right? We all want to make more money, but why should he give you more money, right? You have to make an argument. You have to convince him or her that you need more money, right? So arguments are knowing how to do this is worth it, right? You can use it all over the place. So this is what we're going to say an argument is, okay? It's not the kind of argument you have with your siblings or your friends, right? It's a kind of argument where you are claiming something is true or claiming something is not true, and then you're giving supporting reasons, right? And so we're going to call the thing you want someone to believe the conclusion, and the things that support it we're going to call premises, right? So each argument will have a conclusion, a thing they want that you want someone to believe, and then it'll have premises, things that support it. Cool so far? Okay. Yeah, so here we go. I'm going to make a very simple argument. Again, some of you have heard this before. I apologize. I'm going to make a very simple argument about coffee. Okay? You'll probably notice I have my coffee with me every morning. I enjoy it. I enjoy having it in the morning. But I'm going to make an argument about coffee. Okay? Here it comes. I think, I'm not even going to say I think. You all, in my class, you all should drink coffee. Okay? That is my conclusion. That's the thing I would like you to believe. Of course, it's just an example. You don't have to drink any coffee. This is what I'm suggesting, though. You all should drink coffee. Now, as good critical thinkers, your first question for me should be, why? Right? Why should I believe that? Why should I do as you say? Right? And so I'm going to have to give you some premises, right? I'm going to have to support my conclusion. So let's see. Okay, here are my three premises. I think you should drink coffee because it is delicious. Okay. I think you all should drink coffee because it is inexpensive. And you should all drink coffee because it will help stimulate your brain and help you study and get better grades. Okay? That's my argument. Huh? Yeah, right? It gives you a little jolt, right? A little perk. So there we go. A very simple argument that I've made. A conclusion: you should all drink coffee with three premises. It's delicious, it's inexpensive, and it will help you study and get better grades. Okay? Now, the next step for us, of course, is not to rush to judgment, right? It's not to say yes or no to this argument, but it's to evaluate it and see if it holds up, right? See if this argument holds up. How are we going to do that? Well, we're going to do two things. First, we're going to look and see if the premises logically support the conclusion, okay? And so in this case, the premises are, if they logically support the conclusion, they're going to be reasons why someone might drink coffee, okay? So let's go back here. Now, premise number one, might someone drink coffee because it's delicious? What's that? Everyone's taste is not the same, true. I'm going to put a pin in that for a second because I want to come back to it. But might someone drink anything because it's delicious?
Like, something would be delicious, but it cannot be good for health.
It's true. It's true. I'm going to put a pin in that too because I want to come back to that. But might someone drink something because it's delicious? Yeah, I think so. In fact, I think that's why we drink most of the things we drink besides water, right? People drink tea or Coke or Pepsi or those Monster energy drinks, right? And at the very least, they like the way they taste, right? Yeah, I think that's a reasonable premise, right? Someone might drink coffee because they enjoy the taste of it. I do enjoy the taste of my coffee here. I can say that. So I think that's okay, right? That's logical. That premise logically supports the conclusion. What about number two? Might someone drink coffee or any beverage? Might they drink it because it's inexpensive? They might. Yeah. Right. They might drink it. What do you think, Arad? What do you think?
For example, the difference between Star Wars and Tim Hortons.
Okay.
Tim Hortons definitely more.
It's definitely cheaper.
It's cheaper, yeah.
Yeah. So some people might go to Tim Hortons and get a drink there because it's cheaper than Starbucks, right?
Because definitely Star Wars is more delicious.
Sure. Okay. Sorry, say that again.
Star Wars
Yeah.
is more delicious.
It's more delicious?
Yeah.
Says you.
Says
Oh,
the people.
yeah, it's true. Yeah, lots of people do say that. So those two premises could be kind of like playing off each other in this case, right? Yeah, but so I might drink something if it was inexpensive, but let me just turn it around for a second. Might I not drink something if it was expensive? Yeah, right? So I make my coffee here every morning, but if it cost me $40 to make this,
Definitely won't.
what's that?
Definitely won't.
Get what I want?
Yeah.
Well,
Because it's $40.
Exactly, right? I would not, it's too expensive, right? I would not drink it. So I do drink this because it's delicious, but part of the reason is that it's inexpensive enough for me to have it every day, right? I don't know how much it costs me, but again, I make it at home. It's reasonably inexpensive for me, right? So that's no problem. So, you know, something being inexpensive isn't the only reason someone would drink something. But again, if it was too expensive, people would probably not drink it, right? Or not drink it very often.
Some people like I don't know, like English or like coffee, so I don't think like I feel like it's excellent. Because some people they drink it for the expensive, so they have like something.
To show off.
Yeah.
Oh, they drink it because it's like,
Like
because you'll look cool doing it?
yeah, look cool.
Oh, okay. Do I look cool drinking my coffee up here? No?
No.
What?
Some people like.
Some people.
Like normal bottle and those water at like the fancy steak restaurants in the glass bottle, right? Those cost like way more expensive.
Right. Okay, so that's a good. So Dunya's made a good point here. Is that sometimes people may drink things specifically because they're expensive, right? They make you look cooler or like you have money or something. People might actually choose something to drink because it's inexpensive or because it's expensive. Very true. So do you think this premise is kind of okay? Maybe it's not the best. Might not be the greatest premise of all time, but yeah, people might drink it because it's inexpensive enough to drink, right? Again, there's other factors. People may drink something simply because it's expensive, but I think this is okay for now. We'll come back here. Hang on. So the last one, it will stimulate your brain and help you study and result in better grades. Is that a reason why someone might drink coffee? Yeah, right. If drinking coffee could get you better grades before an exam, I think a lot of people would drink coffee, and I think a lot of people do, right? To keep themselves sharp and awake during the exam, right? So I think that one's good too. It logically supports the conclusion. Okay, good. Now, the second part, are the premises true? Are they actually true? Or, if I did a little bit of work, could I probably prove them to be true? Okay. So, number one, the premise is coffee is delicious. Is that true? Yeah? Well, Zartaj, you said that everyone's taste is a little different, right?
Depends what coffee.
Depends on individual products.
Okay, so there's some individual preference here. Again, the idea has come up that not all coffee tastes the same,
Yeah.
right? So it might depend on which coffee we're talking about. Who would put up your hand? Who would say that? Who would agree with the statement that coffee tastes good? Oh wow, easy crowd. Okay, So you all like the taste of coffee already, and so you're very eager to accept my premise that coffee is delicious. But let's say Eunice comes to me and she says, "You know what, Mike? I think coffee is disgusting. Just the sip of it makes me want to throw up. It's gross."
Yeah, one
Right?
of my friends said that.
Yeah. So does that mean that the premise is false? No. Just means that it's not 100% true, right? Coffee is not delicious for every single human being.
Nothing is 100%
What's that?
true. Nothing is 100% true.
Exactly, right? So, what could I do to kind of demonstrate that this premise is maybe mostly true?
Let me try it.
Okay?
Like, I don't know, start doing coffee. You say do coffee.
Uh-huh.
What do you think?
And what if she still says, "Pfft, gross"?
Take the highest percentage, the one that you likes, like if it is like 90% likes coffee, so that's it.
Oh, okay. How could I figure out that percentage?
Serve it.
What?
Serve it.
Serve it?
Yeah.
Okay. I could do a little experiment maybe in class. I could bring in my coffee maker, and I could make coffee, and you could try it and tell me if it's good.
That sounds interesting.
That sounds interesting, right? What else could I do to get kind of a percentage on how many people think coffee is delicious?
Get them to try different kinds of coffee because there's like the different kinds of beans and how
Ah.
they're
I could try and find the one that's
yeah.
to their taste, right?
If you want to make some yes answers, just make amazing coffee. So everyone.
Okay, so just maybe up my coffee game, right? Make better coffee, maybe. What if I sent around like a little survey to Columbia College students? What if I said, like an Instagram poll, right? And I said, "Hey, who thinks coffee is delicious? Yes or hell no," right? And so then I could collect some data that way, right? And what if, I have hundreds of followers and they all responded, and I found out that 85% of people like coffee, right? So that would be good too, right? And I think that would mostly prove my premise, right? I could do a survey, I could do a taste test in here, I could just try to make better coffee. I could maybe look at some coffee stats, right? Maybe coffee is like the second most consumed beverage on the planet, right? So I could present that and say, well, people seem to like the taste of it because millions and millions of people are drinking it first thing in the morning.
And there's different kinds of coffee. Like I like the ones that are like lattes and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I also like black coffee, like Americano, but I don't drink it as often because it's not really my style.
Yeah. My partner likes those too, and she was looking for a little espresso machine
Oh.
on sale, and she finally found one last year, and so we have one in our kitchen, just a little one, and yeah, she'll make a little.
Nespresso?
No, it's like the
Oh, the one with the
Yeah, with the little
with the
yeah.
milk steamer?
yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, and it does a good job. It's just a little one, like it's just a simple one, but it does a good job, and she likes those. I do too sometimes, but
It's cool to do, right? Like you grind the beans and you take the shot and you.
yeah, it's a whole
Yeah.
whole thing.
It's fun.
It is fun. I don't think I'm that fussy about my coffee, so like once we kind of got it set up, it was like, okay, I'm good with it, but I don't want to tinker with it a lot, but anyway. But yeah, so we could prove that coffee is delicious, I think. What about coffee is inexpensive? How could is that true? Not true?
No.
Not all coffee is cheap.
Not all coffee. So it kind of depends what you're talking about, right? What else do you think? Is this true? Why do you say no, Arad?
Because not all coffee are cheap. Some of them are expensive. It depends on the brand and I don't know, like the type of the coffee,
50-50.
whatever it is.
Yeah.
Where you buy it is like
Yeah.
in a high class restaurant or coffee. So
Sure.
it would be so expensive, definitely.
Sure.
Depends on the place, depends on what coffee, what type of coffee you order.
Yeah.
Depends on lots of different things.
Yeah, as with most things, you can pay as much as you want, right, for something. This coffee that I make in the morning, I get it from Superstore. Comes in a little package. It's about $4. That lasts me about 2 weeks.
The beans?
Yeah, but they're already ground.
Oh,
I don't
already
grind them.
grounded.
So, I don't know. Divide $4 by 10 days, and it costs me 40 cents a day. So this coffee cost me 40 cents. I think that's pretty inexpensive, wouldn't you say?
Is that black coffee or like with milk?
I have a little bit of cream in it, so
Oh.
we probably have to factor that cost in as well. Let's say 50 cents. Cost me 50 cents a day. Inexpensive? Not bad, right? Certainly much better than, $2 or $3 from either Tim Hortons or from Starbucks, right? So I think that's reasonably inexpensive. What else could I do? I guess I could do a bit of an internet search, right? And I could figure out, well, my coffee costs this much, and I could compare it to, iced tea and Coca-Cola and other types of drinks, and I could maybe I can make a little bar graph, right? I could show you how expensive things are, and maybe could I probably prove to you that it's inexpensive? Yeah, I probably could. Again, it depends on the type of coffee that we're talking about and where that coffee is served.
It's all about all things. Like you can buy a glass of water in a less than like $5, and you can buy it in sweet water.
Yeah, depends where you get it, right?
Yeah.
Also depends on who's buying it, right? So if I'm a super rich person, then, maybe even Starbucks is not expensive for me, right?
Yeah.
But if I'm a poor person who's homeless, it might actually be very expensive, right? So again, it kind of depends on the amount of money you have, depends on where you're getting your coffee. But in general, is this a true premise? 50-50? Okay, you're very hard on my premise. I think it's a little more than 50-50. I think it's mostly true.
70-30.
Okay, I'll give it's a deal.
Yeah.
70-30. I think that for the most part it's inexpensive. Yes, if you have no money, it's expensive. Yes, if you go to the fanciest restaurant and order a coffee, it's going to cost you some money. But I think on the whole, it's pretty inexpensive. What about the last one? Is it true?
Yeah.
True? How do we know?
In certain cases, like it's also an individual decision. Because few of my friends said when they drink coffee in a reverse cycle, they feel drowsy, they feel more drowsy.
Oh, yeah, okay.
For me, it's like 90%, 80-20.
You think
Yeah.
that's pretty much true
For my case, it's
for your case? So, yeah, I guess it works for some people, or maybe even for most people. There's certainly a belief that it would, right? That we almost intuitively know that coffee will, has caffeine and it kind of stimulates your brain, and so one would assume that you'll do better on your exams, right? Do you think there's been any scientific studies on this?
not probably.
Yeah, I think there probably has been. I could probably dig them up, right? I could probably find them and show them to you and say, look, these scientists have run experiments, and it turns out that yes, when students drink coffee before an exam, they tend to get better grades, right? So I could prove that to you maybe, right? I could use some scientific papers to do that.
But it's not directly, it's just
Yeah, indirectly, but if it helps, right?
I once fell asleep directly after drinking black coffee.
I can do that too. I can have
Yeah.
I can have a coffee and
And
then
I
go
had
have a
a
nap.
good sleep after drinking the coffee.
Hmm.
Really depends, I think.
Yeah, I agree. We only have a few minutes left here, but would you say that I have a good argument here, or a reasonably good argument?
Yep.
My premises are all logical support for my conclusion. They're all reasons why someone might drink coffee. I think we've agreed that my premises are mostly true, right? Or I could, find data to help sort of prove to you that they're true. So do I have a pretty good argument here? Yeah, I think it's an okay little argument. Now let me show you one thing here. I'm going to add one premise, okay? So you should all drink coffee because it's delicious, because it's inexpensive, it'll help you study, and because the beans come from Colombia. Is that a good premise? Yeah? Why? No? No, why not? Some of them do. They grow all around the world, but some of them come from Colombia. Yeah, but the question is this a good premise? So is this a reason why someone might drink coffee?
I heard that Brazilian coffees are really good.
Brazilian? Yeah, probably.
Luwak,
What's that?
Luwak coffee. It's the expensive coffee from Indonesia.
Oh,
It's,
right. Coffee grows in
I think
Indonesia
it's
as well.
from the poo of this one animal, like the bees.
Oh,
I'm
I've
not
heard about
too
that.
sure.
Yeah, it's like a
very
cat.
expensive.
Isn't it a cat? The cat
No,
eats the
no,
beans and
it's
poops
not
them
a
out?
cat.
No?
I forgot. I think the animal's named Luwak or something. I'm not too sure, but yeah.
I don't think I
What
want poop
do you
coffee.
buy?
So what?
What coffee do you buy?
I'll tell you later, but we've only got a few minutes. I want to finish this. So this isn't really a good premise because for most people, having the beans grow in Colombia is not a reason why they might drink it, right? Is it true that coffee beans grow in Colombia? Absolutely. Can you buy coffee beans from Colombia? Sure can. Are most people drinking it because it comes from Colombia? No. Their favorite beans might come from Colombia, but it's not really a reason why someone would drink coffee. Oh, it's from Colombia? Sign me up. Maybe someone from Colombia who has a lot of like national pride, I don't know. But really it's not a good premise. It's true. It's a true premise, but it's not really a reason why someone might go ahead and do this, right? So the argument is stronger without it, right? Because it doesn't help the case. Now, if I've made a good argument, and I hope we can agree that this is a reasonably good one. It's not perfect, but should you then believe it? Should you just accept my argument? I gave you 3 premises. They're all true-ish, mostly true. They all logically support the conclusion.
It outweighs the disadvantages.
Oh, wait, what are the disadvantages?
Not disadvantages, like the evaluations.
Okay, what do you mean?
It outweighs the bad sides of the coin.
Oh, well, I didn't say anything about the bad sides. What are the bad sides?
Bad sides, it gives you constipation.
Yeah, oh my god, that's the worst part about coffee.
Yeah, drinking
Okay,
coffee
so
is-
you're suggesting that my argument is not complete, right? Some people might say, no, I don't want to drink coffee because it makes me constipated, right? It backs me up.
Egg.
stomachache.
Stomach aches. I don't want to drink that. I didn't mention that. Arad? Addiction,
Yeah.
right? Some people might be concerned about getting addicted to coffee, right? And I can stop anytime I want to. I just don't want to, that's all. Yeah, so some people might be worried about addiction. I didn't talk about the addictiveness of coffee. What else didn't I talk about?
You can get hospitalized if you drink too much
Too
coffee.
much coffee, yeah.
Yeah, if you drink too much,
You drink too much of anything you
that is
Well,
true.
Water?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Too
Really?
much of water.
I have a friend who's, when it was really hot, their dog drank too much water and wound up having to go to the veterinarian.
Nothing too much is good.
He had,
Ouch.
he had water toxicity.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it depletes your electrolytes, and yeah, the dog could have died. Didn't die, but could have.
Ouch.
Life threatening.
What's that?
It's life life-threatening.
It is life-threatening. What about, are there any negative health effects associated with coffee?
Insomnia.
Insomnia, maybe?
Or like your hands shakes all the time. Like look at them.
What about your hands?
But they shake.
Oh, they shake, yeah.
Oh.
Your hands might get a little jittery, right?
Look at them.
There might be other health concerns, but I didn't really talk about that, right? What about there could be a religious thing as well, right? Some religions say, no drugs, no alcohol, right? You're not allowed. And caffeine is a drug, technically, right? It's a very socially acceptable one, which we all consume, and it's a very, it's very soft, right? It's not heroin, let's face it. But caffeine, yeah.
I just knew that.
Yeah, and so, or it operates as one, right? It has the same effect as one. And so, yeah, and so some religions may say no, right? And so if you belong to that religion, you might say, well, yes, Mike, you've made a good argument here, but unfortunately, I can't, right? My religion says no, so I'm not going to do it, right? So even though I've made a good argument here, it's not a complete one, right? There's another argument to be made, right? And that argument might be, no, I don't want to drink coffee because I'm concerned about the health effects. I don't want my hands to shake. I'm concerned about insomnia and constipation. And my religion actually forbids it. And so, therefore, I will not be drinking coffee, right? So, even though I've presented you with a good argument, I haven't talked about everything, right? And people could take issue, right? They could say, good argument, Mike, but you've forgotten about this very important thing, right? You've forgotten about this very important thing. Okay, that is all the time we have. I'm going to let you go because class is over. I hope you have a great weekend. Try to enjoy yourself.
Thank you.
We'll see you on Monday. We'll do a little more critical thinking, and then we'll get into culture and socialization, okay? Online people, thank you for being with us. Have a nice weekend. If you have questions, you can message me, of course, and I'll see you on Monday as well, okay? So, bye-bye. Have a good weekend.